What's going on, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Y'all, thank you so much for coming out. Thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all. You could be anywhere in Dallas, but you decided to hang out with us. That means a lot to us. Hopefully, we can honor your time and make sure that's worth it. We have some familiar faces, we have some new faces. Thank y'all for coming out and being part of the community. If this is your first time ever, welcome to a Dallas Software Developer Group meetup. We are a 100% volunteer-run organization. We host meetups pretty much every 2 weeks. I definitely think we're probably one of the more active groups around town. We are not a technology agnostic group, meaning we do all technologies. And so just show of hands, if this is your first time ever coming out, can you just raise your hand? Don't be shy. Hey, about half the room. All right, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. So to give you an idea, we do a couple things. If you aren't already, join the Discord. We have a very, very active Discord. We have over 12,000 developers in there. It's not all from Dallas, but there's a Dallas section where all the locals can kind of talk in there. Highly recommend checking that out. For those that don't know who I am, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Danny Thompson. I'm the director of technology at a company called This.Labs. For many of us, we are all community driven. If it wasn't for tech meetups like this, I don't think I'd be in tech or be successful in any way, shape, or form. And I owe everything to tech meetups. And so I've learned more about technology in general, just from developers that I hung out with at events like this. And so this is part of the driving force as to why we do this. Everything that we do, it is, again, I kind of said this already, it's for the community. So for those that may not necessarily know, just to put on your radar as well, we did a tech conference in December. It was called the Commit Your Code Tech Conference for Charity. 100% of all ticket sales were donated to charity. We did not keep a penny. We did not monetize it. And to keep up with one thing that we love so much, open source, we open sourced the entire thing, showing where every penny went. 1 penny was not kept for us. We donated everything to charity. We ended up raising over $11,000, which was fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 50% of all the money was donated to St. Jude Children's Hospital to make sure that children can still get taken care of, and the other 50% was donated to Free Code Camp to make sure that tech is always accessible for everyone. We're going to be doing the same thing again this year, September. We're looking like we're going to have around 100 speakers, give or take. The CFP is still open, so if you're interested in speaking, and I hate that I have to preface this, but speaking slots should definitely be reserved for people that have industry experience that can give back in a meaningful way and actually showcase things that they've learned within enterprise level organization or something along those lines. If that matches you in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned speaker or not. We can help you out. We can kind of work with you in your talks and work with you on your stage presence and things like that. If that's what you need. But if you're a speaker and you're definitely in the local Dallas community, the CFP is still open right now. You can go to commityourcode.com to submit your session. And at the end of February, we'll be selecting all of the speakers. So our tech conference last year was 3 tracks. This year, it's going to be 4. So it's it is Java, JavaScript, and cloud. Our 4th track that we're adding this year is .NET. So if you match any of those technologies and want to give a talk on it, that's a perfect place to do that. And of course, the tickets, we're big on tech being accessible for everyone. So for us, the tickets start at $30. Your food is covered for both days. We just leverage sponsor money to kind of help us out. But last year, we ran the entire conference off of $11,500, and it was a pretty huge success. We had almost 400 people there in person. We had 5,500 people join online. It was great for everybody involved. So it's kind of looking like, based on conversations in the Discord, it may be bigger this year. So as a preemptive, just be aware, we haven't put tickets on sale yet, but apparently people are already buying plane tickets to fly down here. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And so we think we did a good job this first year around. We're trying to make sure we do something even better this year coming up. So just keep that on your radar, because especially with us being a local group in Dallas, we'd hate for people in Dallas not be able to attend because they didn't get tickets in time. We haven't put it on sale yet, but I'll just keep that on your radar. Outside of that, this is what we call our Night Of. And so our Night Of is a special theme. It's basically our take on a mini tech conference. You're going to have 6 amazing speakers join us today. And in those speakers, they're lightning talks. So the talks are set to go 10 to 15 minutes max. Some of the speakers have never given a talk before. Some are very seasoned. For the speakers that are brand new, I really implore you to be very cruel to them when they're on stage. And they're not going to learn any better besides that. So, but for those that are seasoned, of course, they're used to it. They know what they're doing. It should be a great time all around. You should walk away. I've always said this. If you walk away with excitement, enthusiasm to Google search something when you get home, that's a win. And so hopefully you'll get that feeling today. Afterwards, we'll have some more networking as well. You're in a room with, what, 100 plus people, give or take? People are here because they want to have a conversation. They want to meet other developers and geek out. Take this as an opportunity to geek out with them. Have good conversations, make some friends, come back to another meetup, hopefully. We'd love to have you. If there's anything that I can ever do for you or one of the other admin, allow me to introduce the admin that are in the room. Dennis Garcia over there. Big man. Eric Anderson over there. I saw Clint all the way in the back hanging out. If it wasn't for amazing people like this, it would be very difficult for us to keep doing this consistently. So big thank you there. Last housekeeping item is our sponsors. So we have to give 2 huge shout outs today. One is to Yum Brands, the building that we are in. They donate the space every single time. Big shout out for the Yum Brands, please. Thank you. And the second shout out is to This.Labs. They covered the pizza today, which is fantastic because they didn't have to. They came through for that. This.Labs is a tech consultancy on one side. The other side, we have a media arm. We have some of the very popular podcasts, like one of which is Modern Web Podcast. This is like a top 30 in the world for JavaScript, which kind of fits the theme of today as well. So if you're looking for a podcast, that might be one that you want to try and tune into. The other one is the Leadership Exchange, where we interview CEOs, CTOs, and CFOs of tech companies, not even just tech, all kinds of companies on the business side of things. So if you're interested on business-related conversations, that might be more your speed. And of course, tech consultancies. We work with companies like Google, Microsoft, Stripe, etc. If you have a company that needs help, This.Labs might be able to pitch in and do something for you, at least deliver a solution and help you hit it on a timely manner. Outside of that, last thing I guess I'll plug, if you haven't checked it out already, I have a podcast with my brother Leon Noel. It seems to be doing all right now. We're in top 10 in the world, US and UK for a technology podcast. So if that's something that you're, we don't understand the success. We're just happy that it's there. But if you want to see 2 people geek out over some tech and other things like that, it might be a great listen for you. Like today's episode we dropped, it was all about DeepSeek versus ChatGPT and a lot of the intricacies in there. Might be worth a listen for some of y'all. Outside of that, I think we are ready to start this thing off. Did I miss anything? I don't think I missed anything. Just as a reminder, if you need any of our links, any information about the group whatsoever, you can go to dowsoftwaredevelopers.org. Check out all of our information there. You can get the Discord link there as well. Or if you haven't already, check us out on Meetup, Dallas Software Developers Group. And to be honest, we just found out today, if you search Dallas Software Developers or Dallas Software Developers Group on Google, we're like the first option every single time. So, hey, it's easy to find us. We're easy to find. I was joking around. We may need to start an SEO agency after that. Like, top. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's bring up the first speaker today, Jeremy Ashley.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right, I want to start off with a question. Do you guys know how much a polar bear weighs? Enough to break the ice, that's right. I'm Jeremy Ashley. I'm a full stack developer. I work for Onyx Media. Before I get started on my presentation, I wanted to say that I am a Dallas software developer success story. I started coming to these meetups before I had a job. I just started learning to code in September of 2022. And I came to my first meetup in March 2023. And I was able to land my first job. It's almost a year next month in tech because of this community and all the free stuff we do. All right, so let's start off with my, okay, we good? Okay, all right. All right, so my talk is on Redux, okay? So what Redux is, it's a global state, Redux is a state managed system commonly used with JavaScript applications. Redux is often used with frameworks like React to manage global state effectively. It provides a single source of truth for your application state, and it makes state interactions predictable through actions and reducers. And oh yeah, I meant to have this pulled up. Let's go Scalidraw. I cannot spell. Wait. There we go. Search history, help me out here. Come on, do I have it here? No, I don't have it. Okay, I had a I had a picture design up. I'll just use my hands here, okay? So like, if you can imagine what global state management does for you, if anybody is learning React or JavaScript and they're having to do prop drilling by sending state from one component to the next, to the next, to the next, that could be what's called prop drilling hell. You're trying to figure out, where did I declare the state to begin with so that I can pull it into the application I need now? But if you can picture your application like this, and if you declared your state like around the entire application, at any point throughout the application in any component, when you need to read that state, you can just pull it off that global state. Think of it like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they go to the quantum realm and they travel through time. They can pop out at any moment in time and do something and change something. And that's actually a really good metaphor there, because when they change something, they don't redo what has happened. They create a new timeline, just like in Redux. In Redux, whenever you change the state, you just copy the state, and it's a new state that you get to read off of. And that's one of the ways that makes it predictable, is because you're not changing the data, you're copying it with a new set with whatever you change. So what is state? This is kind of crazy to say, but I didn't understand state even until I graduated my boot camp, and like maybe June, coming to a couple of meetups here, before I actually understood that state is just a variable, okay? It's just a variable that you declare, that you can change through actions within the application. I mean, like, I guess the boot camp just goes so fast sometimes, it's hard to notice that, and then it seems like something other than a variable, okay? If you, let's go on to the next. Why would you use Redux? I kind of explained that when I did my picture. Just so you know, this slideshow, I didn't realize we're going to do a Night of JavaScript so quickly at the beginning of the year, so I didn't have time to update this a little bit. It's going to flow a little bit better next time around, I promise, okay? So Redux provides a single source of truth to manage the state, because it's just it's outside of the state. Like I showed you, like with my hands over my head, it simplifies state sharing across multiple components, enables predictable and traceable state changes with actions, and makes it easier to debug and track changes with dev tools. Redux dev tools is actually really cool. You could use it on your application to see the pieces of state that you're on at any moment, and you can use like this is like a tree. So basically what I did was I made the slideshow using Vite for the React, and then Redux to manage the state. If you can see right here, there's like a chart. I don't know why this isn't called the tree. It should be called the tree, because this looks more like a tree to me. All right, but that's what the Redux DevTools is, an extension you can download for your Chrome browser, okay? So what is the Redux store, okay? So in order to declare the state that you need globally, you need to have a store that everything is stored into, if you will, okay? So Redux is like the brain, the store is like the brain of the Redux. It acts, Redux architecture keeping everything organized because it's a gigantic, it's like a huge object that you can just pull things out of at any moment. It flows one way through. So instead of having to jump through and change this piece of state or whatever, it goes straight from your global store through a dispatch, a reducer, into the new state. Like I said, it's a copy of it. You're not manipulating the specific state, okay? And it decouples the UI from the data, okay? And what that makes sense is, like, if you're clicking a button that's supposed to close a modal, or a button that's supposed to do some kind of action in that one component, the UI is actually it's actually interacting with the data instead of just presenting the data. Because what's happening is, when you click that button, if you use Redux, it communicates with the Redux store, and it makes a copy of that state, and then your component is just rendering that data, as opposed to just manipulating within a component. That's one of the ways it makes it predictable. Okay, let's see. Next slide. Setting up, I'm just gonna 1, 2, 3. I probably could remove this slide. Like I said, I wish I had more time. This is just how to set it up. You guys can really just look up documentation on that. In Redux, reducers are functions that take the current state and an action as an input, and it returns a new state, okay? So let's look at, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. Let's go, all right. So like if we look at, oh no, I did not think this. Oh yeah, you can still read this. This is perfect. You guys can see this just fine? Awesome. Cool. Okay. So this is my presentation reducer I made for this application that I have here. These are the different actions that this reducer can do based off whatever I tell it to do. So like just a simple one to look at is the start loading and to finish loading. This just changes the state from true to false. And when I started the presentation, there was a loading screen for like, a loading page for like 2 seconds or whatever. That's what it's doing. So when you want to call a specific action, you use the reducer to do it. And oops, let's go. Okay. Oh my gosh. What happened here? Oh yeah, it's my continue button. That's what it is. They're pure functions, so they don't modify the original state, but they make a new one. Like I've already mentioned before, it goes listens for specific actions and types and updates parts of the state accordingly. So like that reducer has all those different actions it could do. If I'm trying to show a new slide, or if like an e-commerce site, you're trying to add stuff to the cart, you're trying to drop stuff from the cart, or if you're just trying to save the data from somebody adding it to the cart even before they buy the product, because data is the biggest thing that's commodified right now. They should not support these actions should not do side effects like API calls. Something really cool, it's going to be in my next slideshow, or the next presentation of this, is these meta middleware that Redux has, where I could call an action inside of one of these like reducers when I have an action that would do it like an API call. And it kind of makes sense if you were trying to convince somebody to let you build them an application for their like small business, and you wanted to save the data of whatever they're adding. You could have the action call like, API call, it saves that data, that timestamp or whatever. Okay, how do you get the state out of the store? This use the useSelector hook. It's provided by React Redux as part of the when you install Redux, you use useSelector, and just like this, you declare it, and then like this use useSelector visible points. All right, so basically this was my useSelector explanation, the slide that was just shown before. This is the code that was to set it up. You basically you call in the state, and then you can bring it out using dot notation, or you can bring it out using deconstructed, those big O curly braces that go over it. By using useSelector, components can subscribe to the changes in the Redux store and re-render when the selected state changes. That's how you're able to pull that state at any moment and show it in that application, just like I was saying before, with the Marvel time travel. How do you modify the state in Redux? Use dispatch hook, okay? The use dispatch hook provided by React Redux. It allows components to send actions to the Redux store, and it provides access to stores the dispatch function, enabling components to modify the global state. Actions must be plain JavaScript objects, typically created using Redux action creators. So like if you had another like reducer here, you would have, I guess, a dispatch. So basically the way that it looked over here, I can show you in this one, like when you use dispatch, I think I had the wrong image on that slide right there. So you bring in the use dispatch from Redux after you've installed it, and then you can declare it as a dispatch. Just the conventional way to do it. And then it might be closed in here. Okay, but you call the dispatch in, okay, like a function, and then inside there you add whatever action you're trying to do from that reducer. Like if it's to start the state of loading or to end the state of loading, the dispatch would be used in that way. Okay, let's see. Next one here. How do you modify the state? Use dispatch. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, cool. That's all I have. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Danny and the team for arranging this. First of all, about myself, I'm Harsha Thirimanna and working for the WSU. So WSU actually, WSU is an open source company. We are a company providing the API management, integration, and identity and access management softwares. So we are fully open source company. Today I would like to talk about, so I have put a couple of the artifacts in this repo. If you would like, you can take it. So, yep. So the topic that I'm going to discuss about, like simplifying the React app login. So everyone would need that because when we develop application, not only the React, whatever that other WordPress or whatever Next.js, whatever using Next.js. So whatever application that you are developing, you would have to have a application login feature to your application. In such cases, what would happen, like what we are doing, basically the application developer, what they do, they implement everything within the application itself. End of the day, like what they really do, like simply they implement it very simple way, like the user login and user management, everything within the application itself. So that's how they think when it start, like implementing those things into the application itself. But end of the day, what the exact reality here is, so it will ended up with, like having a lot of extended capabilities and features around this. The login, you have experienced this with all the other, the login to the other portal and the things. So if you implement within the application itself, so what would happen, you have to implement everything this I have mentioned here. So this is really a challenge. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but it's possible, but it's challenge. What would happen, like basically, as I mentioned here, I have listed down all the features. So basically, the new features requests come from the maybe client or maybe. So end of the day, you have to implement everything, right? So you know all these things, I'm pretty sure. So but still, the developer has confident, like so maybe they will say that, oh no, we can implement it. So what would happen end of the day? So the login things will implemented definitely after sometimes, but your business, the exact business use cases may not achieved because you don't have enough time, or maybe your focus is not for the exact business, right? So that's why it is very important to, like whether we need to implement this in within the application, or whether we need to delegate it to some third party tool and integrate with your application, right? So so in that case, let's say that maybe you already have heard about, like Auth0, Okta, and ForgeRock, and there are so many popular open source and proprietary product for this identity and access management world. Whatever product, like all these product actually implemented the same protocol. So those are public specifications. So they don't have any proprietary protocol. All are, like common protocol. So I have mentioned here OAuth to OpenID Connect and SAML. Those are a bit popular, and OAuth to OpenID Connect is really popular these days. So but again, those, even though, like I mean, we have to a way to communicate with the identity product, but the challenge is you have to learn the specification, because when you jump to the OAuth to OpenID Connect specification or SAML, little bit complicated, but you have to read everything, and you have to understand all the flows and how it communicate, what are the HTTP codes and everything. You have to understand very well to communicate with the standard product. But somehow, if you integrate and if you implement into your application to integrate with the whatever identity product, you can easily switch each to the another identity product, because those are standard protocol, right? But the thing is, so what I'm trying to talk here, so we can find a lot of SDKs and plugins available in right now in like different vendors or maybe open source. So provide these SDK and plugins. So you don't need to focus on this the specification and things. You can just use it and connect with the identity product, right? So I'm talking about here actually as this Escardio React SDK. So this is open source SDK that you can see it here. Sorry. Yeah, you can, it will available in Escardio, sorry, NPM registry. So you can get all the details about this SDK. So I'll show you how it integrate with a simple application, right? So I just create a simple app using Vite, a React app. So what exactly it does actually? So you need to first of all install the SDK, and then the SDK has provided this the auth provider the component that you need to wrap your root component, and again, like, you have to provide a couple of configuration. I'll show you where it comes, and then it's simply, if you go to the your one of a login page or wherever, like, you just need to connect with its hook. That Scardio SDK has provided a hook that you can connect with its state object and a couple of methods that you can communicate. So once you to implement that login and logout capability, you have to just put a sign in, sign out button, and based on the state in this object, check whether it's authenticated or not. If it's not authenticated, you can just trigger this logout sign in method or else sign out method, right? So then it will automatically connect with the redirect to the identity provider and prompt the login screen from there itself and do all the authentication from there and redirect back to the React application, right? So I'll show you that how we configure that in the Escardio. Yeah, so this is actually these features are all same in all the identity product. Even though if you go to any identity product, you can have the same set of terminology that the application and the federated connection and all those are same in any product. So I have created an application here. Let's check here. So I create a sample application, and once we register that application, you will get an unique ID from here. So that it generate based on by following the specification, OpenID Connect specification, to identify your application uniquely. So we have to take this unique ID and put into this configuration. You can see that this unique ID. So because when someone come to this application login page is like, home page. When you click on the login button, it should redirect to the identity provider by attaching this unique ID. So unless the identity provider cannot uniquely identify you, so what happened? Identity provider will prompt the login screen and it collect the username, password, and get back to the application. I'll run this and. Yep. Yeah, so here it's login button. I just put the login button for the default in the default application, Vite application. Once I click on that, it redirect to the Scardio identity platform. So then I have created a user here. You can see that the user management section. I have created this user here, so that user can log into the application from identity server, and it redirect back to the client application with all the user information to this application, right? So that's the basic integration, but I'll show you like what are the benefits that having such a identity provider, and how we easily integrate that extended capabilities without implementing it with the application itself. If you go to the this application, you can easily integrate. Let's say that if you want in this login flow, you can integrate let's say you want SMS OTP as second factor. You can add sorry, email OTP. Let's add email OTP. So, and just update it. That's it. Then you go to the Vite application, just trying to log in again, provide the credential, and then it will prompt the OTP. Yep. So you can log in, right? The same way that basically, let's say that you want a multiple login option, like let's say that passkey, passwordless. You just need to first of all, you need to configure the passkey for your login user. I have configured it. So I added it as a multiple option there. Let's go to the application and we'll try to log in. you can see that the default user login and the passkey. So once you click on that, in prompt 10, I have given this fingerprint. So it's automatically logged in and point to the second factor because I have added the second factor as well. Yeah, once you complete it, redirect back. So likewise, you can connect any social login, whatever, like, so as I mentioned in slide deck, so you don't want to worry about anything. So you can do whatever thing in from here. So I just pointed this as cardio, but you have a lot of open source product. You can download and run it in the production. Key clock and WS also have we have also open source product. You can put in the production same way that you have to communicate and configure it. So, I mean, if you download a key clock, you can easily connect to the key clock, the same application without doing any changes in the application side, right? So I have added a couple of other capabilities as well because, so do I have time? Okay, so some other capabilities as well because, that to your application, not only login and getting the roles, but maybe you need to access some sort of the backend resources, right? In order to access the backend resources, you may get some access token or something from your local store, maybe some identity provider. So once you get the access token, you have to store somewhere because it's a single page application, you have to store somewhere. So this SDK, not only this SDK, oAuth0 SDK as well. So they are storing that the access token in web worker thread, not the session storage or somewhere. So the specialty is that no one can take that access token. So what happened? So we have to whitelist all the backend resources that you want to access and mention that whether it's when you access the API, you have to mention you want to put that access token as a header or not. If you make it true, then what happened? Web worker thread will automatically add that access token to the header and call the backend resources. So no one can see the access token from the main thread. It's all keeping the web worker context. Yeah. So yeah, I have shared everything in that repo. You guys can get it from there. Yeah, thank you.
Has anyone in here tried to roll their own auth before? It is a special kind of heck. It's a special kind of heck you don't want to go through. So really cool. Thank you so much, Harsha. I know you drove all the way down from Austin, so really thank you for being out here. For some of y'all, just as I guess house conduct kind of situation, if you can, if you're talking, please move to the back. A lot of these folks, some of them aren't seasoned speakers, so they're nervous up here. And as they hear y'all talking, it's making them more nervous. Or people next to you, they came here to learn something. So please, if you can, just take conversations to the back so that way it's not disturbing others. We really appreciate that. So now I'm going to bring up Joe Warren, software engineer at USAA.
Thank you. Y'all are far too kind. Y'all still awake? The pizza good? Y'all full? Yeah, I need you awake. I need some feedback. 10 minutes is about to be impossible. Let's do this. I'm gonna try. All right, cool. So yeah, my name is Joe Warren, aka Mighty Joe W, aka Mr. Get Scripter Trying. And I sure do have a spicy topic tonight. I'm going to talk about how to TypeScript without TypeScript. So just raise a hand. Do we have any TypeScript enthusiasts out here? Okay. All right. Anybody that has never seen TypeScript before? Just one? Okay. All right, cool. So let's get to it. So first, a little bit about me. I need to see this. I'm a software engineer at USAA. I'm also a co-organizer for the React.js Dallas meetup. We meet every second Tuesday of the month. So that will be next Tuesday if you want to come check us out. I'm a husband, father of 2 girls. So I'm a girl dad, or we also coach our daughter. And my hobbies are fitness, gaming, sci-fi, basketball, and yes, wrestling. I'm not going to ask if I have any other professional wrestling fans in here, but here you can see me at SmackDown. Those that know, this is Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns, and this is right before The Rock came out. And yes, I got one. Yes, right before The Rock came out, he turned us all into little kids just crying and screaming. So this was a phenomenal experience. We could talk about it after, but yeah, let's go ahead. That's not what we're here for. So yeah, we're gonna just kind of dive into what is typing, when people are talking about typing in JavaScript, why it's useful. Then we're going to get into JS verse TypeScript. We're going to see it in action, and then I'll give you some follow-ups of how you can learn more about it. All right, a lot of hands went up. So this talk is not a diss to TypeScript in any way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to get jumped in the parking lot. This is not an encouragement to migrate you away from TypeScript. This is simply showing an alternative, and I will give some reasons why you may want to try an alternative. But yes, this is not a diss to TypeScript. All right, so yeah, these are some of the reasons to tune in. And sorry, I keep turning because it's small for me, so I gotta look up here. All right, so yeah, you may want to introduce strong typing while continuing to write plain JavaScript. So you may not want to convert your code base and your files into TypeScript. Your company may not support TypeScript internally. I work for a large enterprise company and we do not internally support TypeScript. So this was kind of born out of teams trying to figure out how do we implement strong typing and type checking if we don't have access to TypeScript. So I think we landed on something that's really useful. You may also find that TypeScript may be difficult to read as it gets more complex because everything is intertwined within your code, everything is in line, so that can be challenging to read. And then you may not enjoy writing TypeScript, simply. All right, so if you're not familiar with typing, essentially we're talking about defining the types and the shapes of your data. So if you have variables, defining if it should be a number, if it should be a string, and things of that nature. So JavaScript out of the box is dynamically typed, so it's not going to check any of your types as you're authoring, as you're typing in your code. It's not going to check it until runtime. And that can cause a lot of issues. So if you are earlier in your journey, you may run into a lot of weird errors that have to do with your types being wrong. So you may start console logging variables or doing type of your variable, trying to see what is the type because this is not doing what I expected. So we want to get to strong typing because that's going to reduce a lot of those errors and it's going to improve your developer experience because you will see those errors as you're typing in your IDE. All right, so yeah, we talked about some of the issues with dynamic typing. So yeah, it could lead to unexpected errors. So right here, I have the sum function. So I'm bringing in A and B, and I'm returning the sum of A and B. So if you can see down here, I'm passing in a string of 1 and a number of 2. So what is that going to return? Yeah, that's going to return 12 because it'll just concatenate the string with this number. So I work in money movement. So I just shipped out a new version of our international wires application, which easily can send tens of millions of dollars in one transaction. Also Zelle, also right now I'm working on bill pay. So you imagine as you start getting into more complexities with your applications, this could be catastrophic. So the earlier you could catch these kind of errors, the better. All right, so enter TypeScript. So this essentially is what TypeScript does. So now we have the same kind of function, but as you're bringing in your parameters, you're specifically indicating what this type should be. So now since we're saying that A should be a number, B should be a number, we're getting this error, if you can see the red squiggly under the number 1 or the string of 1, because that is not the number type. So now you know right away before you get too far, before you run your code, you already have an issue. All right, so. Oh, you know what? It's not following as I'm switching, so I'm just gonna keep going through. I had a code example. It's really similar to that, but what I wanted to show is just kind of show that in real time as you start having that issue. So yeah, TypeScript benefits is going to catch those errors early. It's helpful with code completion and auto suggestions. So once you start typing, it kind of knows what you're thinking and what you want to do. So it starts to suggest those types, so that can help you out. That's going to really reduce your debugging time since it's happening earlier. And then type annotations, they can serve as documentation since it's so explicit in saying what the shape of your data should be, what the type should be. However, we've got some TypeScript challenges that you may run into. Sorry, I keep turning like this, but if y'all are cool with me looking too, let's just roll with it. So it could be an increased learning curve, especially the first time you see it, it just looks different. And like I said, once it gets more complex, it can be kind of confusing as you're seeing all of that intertwined and inline right with your code. You also have to worry about the project configurations. It can be more difficult to read. The files must have a TS extension. And so if you're talking about migrating a code base, especially a big code base, you have to convert all of your JS files to TS files. And then those files have to compile down to JavaScript files so that they can run in the browser, because the browser does not run TypeScript. And then that also can impact your build processes because you have that compilation that has to take place. All right, so I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially, Rich Harris, the creator of Svelte, he migrated the whole code base from TypeScript over to JSDoc, and he just cited some of the drawbacks that he just was tired of dealing with. So going to JSDoc, he got a lot of the same benefits as TypeScript, but without some of the things that he felt were headaches for him. All right, so what is JSDoc? Let me see if I can make this bigger. One sec. There we go. All right, so JSDoc is an API documentation generator for JavaScript, which also enables type checking. So again, it's not switching my screen, but what you can do is once you start to, let me get to this example. Basically, it's a commented block of code, and you're kind of doing the same thing you're doing with TypeScript. You're defining what your props or what your arguments, what your params, the types of all of that should be, and the shape. So once you do this, once you actually go ahead and run the JSDoc script, then it creates documentation for you, like a whole HTML documentation file. And it's really clean, it looks good, super useful. But what we want to get into is, what are we doing with types here? So I know when you first see this could be kind of jarring, seeing like you're putting this big of a comment in your code. I know, I was the same way. Like I got to the point where I'm like, your code should be self-documenting and your variables should be nice and short. Your function name should be short. Your unit test could be like documentation. Why are you putting all of it? But now it looks kind of weird when I don't see this because I've gotten so used to it. So one of the benefits is that because this is not in line, if you ever do need to change it or revert it or move away from JSDoc, it's a lot easier to just delete a block of comment versus having to go through manually and take all of that TypeScript out. So yeah, what we're looking at here is in this function, I'm pulling in a profile object. So right above it, you always put the comment right above. This is the way you format it. You can put an optional description, and then you say what each parameter is. So this parameter profile, this is an object. And then here's another optional description. So props.profile, I'm saying what it is. So similar to TypeScript, if you were to create an interface or a type so that you could define the shape of your object, that's what I'm doing right here above. So I'm creating a type def of object and I'm calling it profile. And then, yeah, it's the same thing. I have all of these properties and I'm saying I need these to be strings. So GitHub URL, GitHub username, etc. And then if you see those brackets, that's just saying that those are optional. So overall, that's the syntax, and it's doing the same exact thing as TypeScript. Oh, so yeah, this is what it looks like when you generate the documentation. So you can see somebody could come into your project and just see how everything is laid out. Nice and clean. So looking at some of the JSDoc pros, we kind of already talked about it. It's a smoother onboarding. It's a similar JavaScript syntax. You're still writing JavaScript. You're just putting comments above it, so your JavaScript does not change. It's backwards compatible. You have flexibility in existing projects. So yeah, you can easily sprinkle it in because again, it's just comments above your JavaScript. And then I was trying to think of some cons. I think one may be limited adaptation. So it may be inconsistent of all your teams are not using it or they're not using it at all. And then of course the verbose comment blocks. But outside of that, using it, getting the same benefits that I've been getting from TypeScript. And it has felt easier for me. Although I like both. I like both. All right, so just some resources. You can look up the JSDocs documentation, as well as there's a TypeScript JSDoc reference. So they work together. So again, they're not enemies. They can work really well together. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn / Joseph M. Warren and Blue Sky. I heard somebody talking about Blue Sky at the last meetup, so I went ahead and made one so you can find me at Mighty Joe W. Thank you, everybody. Happy Black History Month, and you guys were great. Thank you.
Y'all give it up one more time for Joe. He deserves that. He killed it. He killed it. That's my brother. And for those that don't know, he also runs a meetup group. He runs the React.js Dallas group in Frisco. So if you've never checked it out there, we love that group. We always support that group. Highly recommend checking out their meetups. They just had an AI one that was really good. They do a lot of stuff, really active group. They got a great Slack channel as well. Highly recommend checking all that out. So we're gonna bring up the next speaker, David Archuleta. We'll start with you. And senior software engineer at interviewing.io.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's my name. That's my baby. He's 4 months old. That's my wife and I in Chicago at the Trump Tower. So I do freelance work for this company, this startup out of San Francisco called Interviewing.io. The author, or the CEO, sorry, the founder and CEO was one of the co-authors of this book, Beyond Cracking the Coding Interview, which is a sequel to a book called Cracking the Coding Interview. And I'm in it. So that's the only reason this slide exists. This is my LinkedIn. So you can scan that and connect with me on LinkedIn. This is a group on Telegram, which if you want to do leak code problems, we could do it together as a group, just a group of friends. Also, an Interviewing.io, they have it's like a platform for doing a bunch of mock technical interviews, DSA, like data structure algorithm type of interviews. So out of all the people on there that get interviewed, out of tens of thousands of engineers, I'm in the top 5%. So if you do hire someone or you're looking to hire someone, I am a good person to look at. My talk is called Building High Performance Applications with WASM and JavaScript. So why does performance matter in web applications? Well, modern web apps are demanding. Real-time processing, AI, gaming, multimedia, and JavaScript is powerful, but not always efficient for CPU-intensive tasks. And WebAssembly or WASM can be a solution because it's near native performance in the browser. And there's a rocket. So if you've heard of companies like Figma, they use WASM for their online editor. Photoshop also does it if you use the web version of Photoshop. So what is WebAssembly? It's a binary instruction format that runs at near native speed. And it is designed for performance and security, and it works alongside JavaScript, and it does not replace JavaScript. And it's very simple. It can be written in C, C++, Rust, Go, and you can compile down to WASM. So understanding WebAssembly performance. So JavaScript, the execution model of JavaScript is single-threaded, just-in-time optimized. And although the language of JavaScript is single-threaded, a lot of the APIs allow you to run multi-threaded programming using JavaScript, such as with the V8 and in Node. And so, in fact, that's actually how the EM scriptum, which is the C++ compiler to WASM, that's how it enables multi-threaded programming in the browser, is through these APIs, for example, with service workers and so forth in the browser. And the WASM execution model is precompiled, statically optimized, and it runs in a sandbox. There was previously no garbage collection, but that is no longer true. It's actually a WASM garbage collector that is enabled by default in the Chrome browser. And so you could use, for example, garbage collector language like Java and compile it down to WASM, and it'll be just the same. So there's that. So when to use WebAssembly instead of JavaScript. JavaScript is really good at DOM manipulation. React is pretty great at modifying things on the browser really quickly. WebAssembly is not as quick with that, especially when you're passing things back and forth. And we're going to see that in a little bit, how that's can be a little snag. Number crunching, JavaScript is not the best. WebAssembly is very good because you can crunch a bunch of numbers. And you can use multi-threaded programming and do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, you can do multi-threaded in JavaScript too, but basically you get the near native performance of C++ and whatever with WebAssembly. So that's what's great about it. Game engines, and then of course, image and video processing. Game engines, I think someone did a whole Doom, like the video game, in the browser a couple years ago. So that's also pretty cool. This is a leak code problem called the Game of Life. Game of Life, Conway's Game of Life is from before the leak code problem, but I came across the problem talking about it with a friend. But the Game of Life, okay, and this is what I'm going to demo this, so this is why I'm talking about it. You get a grid of zeros and ones, and a 1 is an alive cell, a 0 is a dead cell. And based off of these rules, I'm not going to go through each rule, but basically what you have to do is you have to look at all the neighbors of your alive cells and figure out if it's going to be alive or dead in the next state of the board, right? So you go through all the cells and you figure out what it's going to be in the next transition. So in order to do that, we can write the code in C++. There's Game of Life in C++. Not the whole thing, obviously, but there it is. Then you have these EM script and bindings, which are basically just like exports of the module. And so here, the only one that really matters is Game of Life, which is like the fourth one. I was doing a bunch of other things, so you can ignore the rest. Although vector int and vector int is also important. That's going to be used in Game of Life. So basically all that is just an array of an arrays, right? And you compile to WASM. And so in C++, you can use a compiler called the EM Scriptum compiler, EMCC. If you want to use it in a web environment, like such as in a React app or something, you can use the S environment equals web compilation option. Otherwise, you can use it in Node. Just this last one right here, that's what I use for Node. Yeah. Then you load the WASM. So a Node, you can literally just require it. So require WASM demo.js. The compiler will output a WASM file and a JavaScript file, which is sort of like the glue between JavaScript and the actual WASM. So that's pretty simple to understand. This, if you use the environment equals web option, WASM will expose a function that will return a promise that resolves to the WASM instance. So if you see there, window.demo WASM module, that's the name of that's the exported name right there, demo WASM module. So that's the name of the function that resolves or returns a promise, right? And that'll resolve to the instance of WASM. So we can compare the performance times of a WASM matrix board and a JS board. Okay. Here. Here. Okay, you can see that. So this is the Game of Life on a 20 by 20 board. I also use React Scan, so you can see that it's only re-rendering once when you update the board. And this is very fast. Taking like 0.9 milliseconds, 0 milliseconds, 0.1 milliseconds. You go to WASM. That was a weird, why did it? That makes me think something is kind of wrong. But anyways, here, 0.1, 0.1, 0 milliseconds. 0 milliseconds. And you're saying to yourself, well, okay, that's like basically the same. Why are you even talking to me about this, dude? Well, I messed up because in this WASM game of life, right? This is the app, this is the component here. What I have to do is I have to expose these vector ints into my JavaScript. And so I can pass, I'm passing along this memory from the browser to WASM and back. So every single time it's doing that. And so what I wanted to do and what I did not get time to do was do a whole bunch of like allocating memory. So it would actually use like malloc and freeing the memory. It didn't quite get it to work, so that's why it's commented out. But it would be a lot faster. And then here I'll show you. This is in Node. So the game of life. So it's the same thing, but in Node here. Oh, by the way, this WASM compiler, instead of downloading it to my laptop, I have it being run as a Docker file in Docker. So it uses the script, and then it outputs the compilation. I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty neat. But in this game of life here, I just do I do 10 transitions, and I benchmark that. And I do that for JS and WASM. So the JS version is 5 milliseconds. WASM version is 2 milliseconds. So it's faster. Great. And then I just think the animation is kind of cool with the game of life. Okay. Don't clap yet. No, you can. I'm basically done. There's a couple things, like I was saying, the garbage collector. You can do AI and ML in the browser with TensorFlow JS and WebAssembly. So super cool. There's a lot of possibilities for high performance stuff. And WebAssembly system interface. I just saw a talk from these guys from American Express who just basically they replace containers with WASM components, and then they have WASM RPC, so they can talk to all the other container replaced WASM components. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so WASM's pretty cool. It's fast. It's a tip that is from before. Bye.
All right, let's bring up Nishith again. Let's see if we can get this working right this time.
Okay. Apologies for the inconvenience. I know I'm pathetic in making slides, so my bad. But I can try to provide more content that is more meaningful with a proper more use cases. Oh, sorry. Am I audible? Oh, thank you so much. So as coming back to my slides presentation, that is, I know it is pathetic, but I'm trying to add more use cases and more discussion so that it will be more fruitful for everyone when you actually go through the slides, right? So this particular presentation is about the React 19 all new features that we came up, right? So how many of you actually started using React 19? Yeah, that's really nice. I love to see that hands, actually. But I recently introduced in some of my projects where we were working on React 18. I think this December it came up, and this React 19 actually came up with lots of optimizations that actually boosted the scope and efficiency, the loading time and unnecessary use of boilerplate code that used to be there in previous React versions. So as I can immediately jump to some of the features. of course, React compiler is is not the part of the React.js, the React 19 library. Definitely, it is still experimental. We are hoping that somewhere this year we can get a proper version. But if you want to use this experimental version of this React 19, I mean React compiler, you can possibly use it. There's some set of commands that I added. But in this whole conversation, in this new React 19 features, I think I found React compiler is the most interesting one. How? As we can go through some of the features, like the React compiler automatically analyzes component code. It detects which value of computations can be safely memorized. Memorization, sorry, what does it mean actually? This particular terminology, how many of you are familiar with this term? Couple of them, that's good to see. So this actually, when you're using React compiler, right, you don't have to use this use memo, React memo, callbacks. The compiler can take care of it on its side whenever we actually configure it, right? The point is, it actually caches the data. Like even if there are like 100 components in one container component, if there's any change in value in for a particular component, then only that particular component gets rendered, while the rest component of the components will remain unrendered. So this whole page won't get completely reloaded. Usually, if you're not using a React compiler and we are not using the memo, we usually come across these issues that even if there is a single change that gets into a particular component, all the components that is called inside those React component gets re-rendered. That actually screw up the performance of that page, possibly. Here, this particular thing that we are talking about is not only the small application. Maybe in a small application, you may not find those differences. But when we are talking about the banking applications or the social networking applications, we actually see the differences. Like I work with an application that has like millions or billions of load, and I can see actually the difference, even where even the single microseconds count. So we are talking about those kind of areas. Now, what are the problems we face usually? Like developer, we end up in adding, as I already mentioned, a lot of boilerplate code and all. We start putting them together. But when we are using React compiler, we don't have to worry about those things. It is completely taken care by a React compiler. There are very small couple of steps, especially, of course, in React 18, it is not suggested to use React compiler, but React 19 is more. But of course, you can still use it but you have to define certain variables. But when it comes to React 19, you just have to use these two libraries, and you need to do some configurations like in babel.config or vit.config.js, and you're done. Or further, there could be two ways of using the React compiler: the use memo, use non-memo. I think this is the word. If you want to go other way around, so either way around, if you want that, okay, or there could be certain components you don't want React compiler to touch, you can possibly use non-memo. I think this is a word. But if you want to go other way around, you want to make sure that only certain components will get compiled, you can possibly use memo and these the keywords. Right. So this is one of the most important like a feature that React compiler came up, of course, where in experimental phase in React 19. Let's talk about the few hooks. We usually hooks a lot, especially in React 19 and some of the versions. Lots of hooks came up. Let's talk about the use form status. So usually we have like lots of forms in an applications, and it is really important that how we use those forms. So like I can go with a quick technical jargon that is provide status information about the form submission, such as pending status. So if you have actually called this particular hook use form, as you can see, then you can actually get the complete status of that form. Like for example, when you submit a form, you actually, of course, there's always lots of process goes on. It could be async, sync, it goes, and then finally it comes back with a certain state. So how your form will know, that when it needs to like disable submit, or how you will identify the status whenever you call any particular action, right? When you form submission, how you will identify it. So this work can be done by the use form status. So even if you're not using use form status, we always end up writing lots of methods like use state, we use status, then we use message, all these things. And then we add typical loading, big loading circles and all that seems to be irritating these days. But Right now, we are trying to move towards more sophisticated approaches, right? Where we just show that, okay, since something is loading, so we can possibly use the pending state, right? It's a very simple, I can share those slides, but if I go to the example, you can see that like in a pending state, it submits some user data. And then of course, the pending is the method that we can get when you use form status. And then based on this pending, we can actually check whether it's a request, whether data is there or not. Like, of course, it comes with a couple of more variables, as you can see over here. Pending is a status, data is a form data, method is whether it's get, post, and action is a form, is action name. So this way we can actually manage, make it more user-friendly, make it more interactive our users. Next is a use action states. How many of you actually use an external library to handle their validations and all, or use the complete forms? So now it's not required. In React 19, we can use possibly use action state in order to use all those validations. You can use states. You can actually, so as you can see, the simplifiers managing from states and submissions by capturing input data, handling validations, managing error states. You can do all these things using use action state. So that is another good feature that React 19 came up. We recently started using it, so it's really good. Like there are also the point here, what I'm trying to make is sometimes we use lots of heavy third-party library that unnecessarily increases the load on the React applications or any application. So when we are thinking about designing any application, like as an architect, when I design application, even like where it is required, place where it is required, like there are always three things we always ask: how, where, why, and what. These are the three questions that I usually ask myself, that when it is required to put what and how I can gain efficiency. So always there's two things, functional and a non-functional requirements. Maybe I can take a discussions and system design later, but of course, these comes under non-functional requirements that kind of adds the efficiency of the application overall, right? So this is use action state. Then we cover about use optimistic. This is basically another method. I'm not sure why but it's basically the whole purpose is to give the more user, user interactive interfaces. Basically, whenever there's lots of background operations going on, then we can use optimistic state to make it more interactive. Like as you say, it manages optimistic updates by allowing components to assume a successful operations before confirmations. You might have noticed when you are doing a Facebook, you click on like. Do you really think that it immediately goes to a big database of Facebook and it comes back with a like, and suddenly your count increases? Do you really think these things happens? Absolutely not. Of course, no matter it's $1 billion company, but still they want to. So there comes an optimistic state comes in where it increases it. The optimistic means it is very optimistic about it that it will definitely get an update on the like. Of course, the like will increase. But in a worst case scenario, if it fails, that's okay. You can like again, right? Or you can post again, right? It will remove it. It will possibly gain an error. So this is how use optimistic will give you better user experiences when you're using these hooks. So React came up, of course, definitely Facebook, Meta, definitely they must be the first person who, being a social networking platform owners, they must be facing these issues a lot. So they come up with this feature. Of course, there's a couple of methods: optimistic state, add optimistic, use optimistic, you can possibly use. Like you can see that even before adding, even if it got added before into an actual database, it actually shown the result. Okay, it's sorted. By any chance, if it fail, then it will revert it. That's okay. But the user will be happy, now it will be more interactive. Right? Then comes another hook, that is use. We might have noticed, of course, it is still kind of, I feel like even if it is there, I never started using much, but it is kind of also not in a full-fledged option in React 19. It's also kind of experimental, what I feel, but because it is already, you can see there's some limitations. Basically, what is this use hook? As it is already seen that it's new experimental feature where it allows you to read the value of resources like promise or context. So where you are using use effects, use callbacks, possibly async functions, possibly you can use. You don't have to remember so many methods. There are so many 8 or 10 hooks. You don't have to remember many of them. Couple of them at least get reduced. So in this way, you can just use keyword and you're sorted with the values that is coming in. So even if there's a change in value, you can still, it will be in a suspended state, and then still you can, once the value is there, you can get the value. So in this way, use can be used. So it is designed simply working with asynchronous data and context in React components. So as you can see, there are two examples I've taken as suspense. Usually, I think many of you might be using suspense. Like what? Of course, suspense also came up with a fallback methods as well, but we can use with suspense or we can use with context. Of course, as I mentioned, there are limitations. Use hook is still experimental, may change in future React releases, but possibly you can start using it. I think they have introduced it in certain use cases, right? And when working with asynchronous data fetching, you want to leverage these as suspense, right? Now, there's another feature called document metadata support. When we are doing SEO, right? Then we want that metadata and all, because everyone wants their site to be on top on Google, right? Or any other platforms. So we use meta descriptions. We also want that whenever we share our link to any other place, that image comes up, right? With an image or a text, right? That basically that it fetches the meta tags and all data, and it places it here. Whenever, for example, you might have noticed when you pull that any blogger link and try to put it just a link on the post of Facebook or any platform, you see whole image or text comes up. So it is always, if you go with a normal process, it is really tough because you need to write all sort of code and all in order to make it work, put those tags on all, change page, like put those meta tags, right? Because you need to do some coding, but that is now taken care by our React 19, where they have already introduced this meta keyword, where meta name description, and it will automatically gets added to that particular page. So this is another big thing when it comes to the search engine optimizations kind of a thing, because it's highly required, and especially when you are increasing the for marketing purposes and all. So as you can see, title, link, meta, and all these tags can come up. And with this simple meta name and description, you can use it. You don't have to place any JavaScript or a React code anywhere in your application, except just calling the tag, and you're sorted, right? Just you'd have to dynamically control the text if you want to. Otherwise, you can still place it static, right? So just going back to our slides, improve user performance, metadata like viewport settings and fav icons enhance the usability of a user save, social media sharings and all, right? SEO optimizations. Another thing is that assert loading enhancements. You see that whenever we are in an application, there are lots of places we have to load those. We face these issues that whether image gets loaded, sometimes the JS gets loaded before the action, right? For example, you click on action, but the JS never got loaded. And then you suddenly start facing those errors. I think everyone as a JavaScript developer must have faced those things, right? The loading time is different when it comes to the actions and the events. These mismatch sometimes happens, right? And also sometimes, like whenever you are loading an image, right? Also sometimes it appears, sometimes it doesn't appear. So all these like causes a very, very pathetic user experiences when we are dealing with a very popular sites, or like whether it's even if it's a meetup or a social networking or any CRMs or ERPs, it gives a very bad experiences to the user. Now, with this assert loading enhancements, we can actually manage it. Like, for example, just giving an example, the image is only loaded when it's visible in a viewport, like loading is equals to lazy. So that gives another better user experiences. Sometimes what happens is image doesn't get loaded, but the view gets loaded. So that is also a pathetic experience for a user. CDN assert loading, using and retrieving assets via CDN is made simpler. So now we can just have to write this certain code and it is good to go, right? So built-in lazy loadings, improved support CDN assets, declarative syntax for loadings. It has already, so intuitive and declarative to include asserts in your React. So this made this assert loading enhancement better, like other hooks actually. So this is another way, like use effects. So what we are trying to do, you can see that by using all those small things coming up, which is actually a big thing, it is actually reducing the time of application loading, enhancing the user experiences, increasing the user interactiveness through these OR hooks. Right. So another popular one is the use server directive. Now, initially when I actually went through this use server directive, I thought that what is it actually, like why, how we are that our client is still not querying it. Like the problem is, I will take my real life example, right? Whenever you are actually querying on a client side, you might be using XCS, right? Mostly for calling APIs, right? And for GraphQLs, there could be, of course, there you might be using other things, right? But the point is, when you are actually calling any client, any particular API, what exactly happens? It hits that particular framework, whether it's an XCS, then it goes to a node, and then further, it actually goes to an application, then it comes back. There could be some interceptors if you have added, then it takes then add those rules if there's any, and then finally it goes back to the application. And if there's any kind of a UI that is dependent on a data output, then it definitely adds more time in loading. I hope I'm making sense actually, because you can see there's every step is adding couple of seconds or couple of seconds that is actually increasing the overall time of the application, right? When it comes to the use server directive, you just have to use use server. You can actually, if you annotate it, it won't be a part of a JS UI bundle, definitely. And you can just call those method directly by annotating use server directive, and you can call that method and directly. For example, you can take an example, like, and also you can return the UI complete. You can develop the complete UI and also UI in bits. And so, for example, there's a component that has a listing of a profile, right, or users. You can actually return it from use server. You can directly hit that method, and directly a node will query it. Sometimes the node, if you're using Mongoose or directly connecting with the databases, you can possibly get the response, and you can create a UI and then completely. So for example, when you're using a client and a server, there's a client server architecture, right? When we need to understand that sometimes when a client gets loaded, oh, sorry. So, sorry, I got carried away when it comes to these things. So I'm sorry. Maybe we can discuss it based on the use cases. But just to cut short, actually, this will actually process whatever is there on the data, create the UI, and then return to client. So that will actually also reduces the time. So that is another way of optimizations. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so much sorry I bored you a lot.
All right, we're bringing up our final speaker of the night. Thank you all for hanging out for so long. Hopefully you got some value out of this time. Has it been good so far for y'all? There we go. Come on up, Sean. It's all yours.
Okay. Can y'all hear me okay? If I speak from this distance, is this okay? Good. All right, cool. So I'm Sean. I'm been a developer here for in the Dallas area for about 3.5 years. I don't have a fancy slideshow, but I'm really regretting it because the thought of live coding in front of 100 people is increasingly terrifying. But I'm gonna do it because everything's gonna work first try, every try, right? Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Danny's co-host, Leon Noel. I was in the first 100 devs cohort in 2020 during the pandemic. And it was a great experience. Wouldn't be here today without that beautiful, beautiful man. And go check out 100 devs, just Google it. Find the Discord if you can. It's a great group of people, super helpful, super nice. But yes, 100 devs. Leon Noel, Danny Thompson, listen to their podcast. They're both amazing people. First off, how many Angular devs do we have in here today? Okay, we got a few. Okay, y'all are probably gonna hate this talk because I am talking about reactive and declarative programming in Angular. Reactive and declarative. There's nothing more in this world that Angular devs hate more than React paradigms. So, but there's some valuable lessons to take from that. So I want to start off with, what does reactive and declarative code mean? What does it look like? And I want to preface this with the idea of a pure function. So in the React docs, it describes a pure function as a function with the following characteristics. It minds its own business, same inputs, same outputs. So it does not change any objects or variables that existed before it was called. And then given the same inputs, pure function is always returning the same result, right? So they have this little math formula here. So if our input into our function is y, and our output is 2x, if our input is 2, our output's always going to be 4, right? 3, 6, always, every single time. And that is an important pillar of declarative and reactive programming. So reactive in this sense just means that our UI components are reacting to changes within our state. And thanks to Jeremy's talk, we know that state is just a variable that can change over time, right? And so this allows our components to react to that without having to manually manipulate the DOM. And so a really easy example of this is like if we have a name, you know, like we have Bobby and then Bobberson. And then we have, we declare full name, right? It's first name plus last name, yada, 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 right? But what happens if we change the first name to Bobberino, right? Full name is still going to have the reference to Bobby. So it's not going to be reactive in this sense. Declarative in this sense means that we're declaring what our code is doing rather than how it's doing it. How is called imperative code, and it literally describes how we're going to do something. And a good example of this is like if I have an array and you know, we have our for loop, yada, 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 and we want to multiply that by 2, right? In that array. So we want to manipulate that array. We just want to multiply everything in that array by 2. That is describing how we are going to do this. Whereas the what in this case would be the map function, right? So we take some input and we multiply that by 2. You know, we have our array here. And this is declaring what we are doing in that map. It's not describing how we are doing it exactly. So that's essentially what we mean by reactive and declarative code. And it's very, very easy to break these paradigms within Angular. A lot of my code at work is imperative and looks like this. And it makes me want to hurl myself off a cliff in Minecraft. So I've got this app here. Search for Pokemon. We're going to search for the best Pokemon, which is Snorlax. So we have Snorlax here. And then we have a list of where Snorlax lives, where we can find him. So I'll show you the code here. And if you're not familiar with Angular, I'll try my best to describe kind of what's going on here. I'm going to be moving pretty quick, but I'm going to try to give some context. And so we're in a component here, which is basically just a Typescript class. And we have a template as well. So if you're coming from React, think of this as like, you know, inside your return statement, this is your JSX. This is like above your return. This is like where you're manipulating stuff. So in our template, we have an input and a button, and then all of our display data is here. We're just calling this function when the user clicks the button. So inside this function, we're calling our service, which is a different class. And services in Angular are basically used to make calls to external APIs through HTTP, store state, share state between components, things like that. In this case, I have 2 functions making an API call to the Poke API. And that is getting the Pokemon and getting the location encounters. So in here, let me actually reference. So what this function's doing basically is calling out to the Pokemon API, right? Getting the data and then handling it in this handler function here, right? So this is using a library called RxJS, which is just a it's a reactive extensions library for JavaScript. And it becomes bundled with Angular, so it's very tightly coupled to the Angular ecosystem, but you can also use it in React if you're a masochist. The main object of RxJS is called an observable, and an observable is basically just a stream that can potentially deliver future values. So think of it just like a stream down a mountain, right? You know, you have you and your friend are at a creek, you're at the top, they're at the bottom, and you make a little boat, a little paper boat, and you're passing that boat down the stream. The value is going down the stream, and some subscriber is going to receive that value, right? So in here, we're calling the subscribe, we're receiving that value, and then we're handling this in this callback function, right? So in the handler, we have our Pokemon, right? Now we need to get where they live. Excuse me. So we need the ID. So this call is dependent on the previous call. Once we get the response, we're again calling this function to handle the response. And then we are setting our states here. And so our states are just regular variables with our component. Just very imperative design because we are setting something outside of a function. And there's no way to respond to that as it changes. So how do we fix this? How do we make it more declarative? How do we make it more reactive? We're going to go to our service here. We're going to utilize RxJS, and we're going to utilize signals in Angular. And I'll describe those as I'm going along here. So the first thing that I want to do is create a source. So we're going to kind of follow the Redux pattern here, and thanks to Jeremy. Again, this wasn't planned, I swear. But we're gonna use the Redux paradigm. So we're gonna create a new subject that is going to contain a string, and a subject is like an observable, but you can also so things can subscribe to it, right? And get values. You can get that boat that's floating down the stream, but you can also pass values back into it. So it's a way to communicate between components. It's a way to hold state. Subjects actually don't hold states, behavior subject, but so that's essentially what's happening here. So I'm gonna go ahead and import this. So we have our source, what we're receiving to start all of this. Let's go ahead and create our state here. So I'm gonna make this private. Let's see. So I'm going to be using what's called a signal in Angular. It's relatively new. What a signal is, it's basically just a wrapper around a value, and it inherently promotes declarative and reactive programming because you cannot mutate it in place. So, and then let's get our encounters. And this is going to be another signal. So we have our state, we have our source here. We're going to go ahead and create our reducer inside here. So essentially what we're going to be doing here is subscribing to our source, and then we're going to be manipulating. Think of it like it's like our business logic in here. So we're going to do fetch Pokemon pipe subscribe, and I'm going to be using some functions within here. They are exclusively RxJS functions. So if we go in here, RxJS has a whole lot of functions that you can use. They call them operators. It's very overwhelming, very confusing, but I'm going to try my best to explain what's happening. So type is an operator that just allows you to manipulate the stream, right? You're doing something to the boat as it's going along in the stream, right? And then we're going to call switch map, which is basically going to, when you subscribe to an observable, you're getting that stream. Switch map just switches and creates a higher order observable. So an inner observable, basically, it will switch from the outside subscription to the inside subscription. And then I'll show, let's see. So inside here is where we're actually going to be calling our search Pokemon function. So right. So the way that this is working is something is going to input a name in here, which is type string. This is going to be input in here. We're going to grab that name, and then we're going to go ahead and make this API call here. But we're not done. Since we need the locations, and the locations is dependent on the Pokemon that we get, we need to switch map again. So at this point, we'll have our Pokemon, hopefully, if everything goes right. And then we will call our get location encounters. And this is going to need that. And from here, we're going to need both our Pokemon and the encounter state. So I'm going to use another operator after this. So I'm going to change this stream. It gets a little complicated. This is might be a confusing example, but I'm just going to create this. I'm going to try to explain it as fast as I can. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to come talk to me afterwards. I'm going to use map. This is very similar to JavaScript map. It's just taking some kind of input, transforming it, and outputting the result. So at this point, we're going to have our encounters, response, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new objects, if I can spell here. This is going to be our response for the counters, and our Pokemon will be our Pokemon response. Okay, so now that we've done all this work, this is not going to do anything. In order for us to actually have what we want to do here, I need to change this name. We need to actually do something with what we have. So we need to set our state, essentially. So in here, we're going to have our response, which we just mapped the value to whatever this object is going to be here. So our Pokemon state, we're going to set that to our response.Pokemon. And this needs to be curly brace. We're also going to do the same with our encounters. Okay, and then let's see what this is complaining about. Possibly null. Let's just go ahead. You are not null. You will be what I say. Okay, and so at this point, we have our state management in place. We have our fetching of the data in place. Everything should be good to go. But in the component, we do not have this state from our service. How do we get that? Well, it's as easy as creating you can just create a variable here. This is another method that is signal based. So computed basically just creates a signals are by default writable, which means you can set them. Computed creates a non-writable signal, so it cannot be modified. It is basically read only. It's really nice if you have a big object, right? So this Pokemon object is huge. If you just want the moves of the Pokemon, you could create moves here and then just reference this Pokemon state, and you have to do a method call. That's the syntax. And then from here, you have all of the options of the Pokemon. And so this right here is a type signal, Pokemon, or null. So whenever this gets called via method, it will just give you the value of this signal. So in here, we can go ahead and just reference that. How am I doing on time? Okay. All right. So in here, we have our state. We basically just need to replace this with our updated state here. And that will essentially not lead to C# in a nutshell. Lead to our data being presented on the page, and it will update reactively. If Pokemon changes, the value will be rendered automatically. Everything is reactive completely. And the benefits of this are you can look at this and you might not understand half of it right now, but everything you need is right here compared to you have a function call here, you have a function call here. Let's say Bobby Boberson creates another method here, and then you have to go down 5 methods to be like, okay, what's in handle encounter response? Oh, let me scroll all the way down. Everything you need is here. It's declared. It's nice. It's neat. And that is reactive and declarative coding in a nutshell. Thank you.
All right, y'all. We made it to the end. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. So 2 things. One, a lot of y'all in this room, we have the room for about another 20 minutes or so before they kick us out. So what we do at the end of every single meetup, if you feel comfortable, we ask everybody to come to the front. We always take a group photo together. It's kind of our tradition to celebrate the end of the meetup, and then we can network. Some of y'all are in here knowing some people. Some of y'all don't know anybody else. I would challenge some of y'all in this whole networking session of us talking together, hanging out, talk to people that you've never met before. Take it upon yourself to actually go out of your comfort zone. I know some of y'all find that intimidating. Just try. I'm open to talking to whoever, but I really invite y'all to try and talk to somebody else and have a good conversation. If you want an opener, talk about one of the takeaways that you got from tonight. That could be an easy way for you to get into the conversation, but try to meet some new people tonight, all right? So if you feel comfortable, please come to the front. We'll take a good photo together, and then we'll get on with the rest of the night. Thank y'all. And special thank you to the speakers. Thank y'all. All right, let's take a group photo.